The sun was setting over New Haven Colony when Jake Morrison saw the ships. He was walking the perimeter fence, checking the security sensors like he did every evening. The sky turned orange and purple, beautiful in a way that still surprised him after 5 years on this planet. Then the colors changed. Dark shadows moved across the sunset, blocking out the light. Jake stopped walking. His hand moved to the radio on his belt. Before he could speak, the alarm siren started screaming across the colony. Red lights flashed on every building. People ran from their homes, confused and scared. Children cried. Dogs barked. Everyone looked up at the sky. The ships were huge. They looked like dark metal insects with wings that didn't move. Jake counted 5 of them, each one bigger than the colony's main building. They came down fast, too fast. The wind from their engines bent the trees and knocked over fences. Dust flew everywhere. Jake grabbed his radio. His voice was steady even though his heart was pounding. He had been a soldier before he came to New Haven. He knew what an attack looked like. "This is Morrison. We have incoming hostile ships. Everyone get to the emergency shelters now." He started running toward the main settlement. The colonists needed help getting to safety. The emergency shelters were underground, built for storms and accidents. No one thought they would need them for this. New Haven was supposed to be safe. It was far from any known threats. That's why people came here, to start new lives away from war and danger. The first ship landed in the center square. Its legs crushed the fountain that the colonists had built together last summer. A door opened in the ship's side. Jake saw movement inside, shadows that were too tall and moved wrong. Then they came out. Jake had never seen anything like them. They walked on 2 legs but had 4 arms. Their bodies were covered in purple shells that looked like armor. They were 7 feet tall, maybe more. Their heads had too many eyes, dark and reflective like insect eyes. When they moved, their shells clicked together. The sound made Jake's skin crawl. One of the creatures raised a weapon. It looked like a rifle, but wrong, organic somehow. Blue light shot out and hit the security station. The building exploded. Jake felt the heat from 50 yards away. He dove behind a water tank. More colonists were running now, screaming. The creatures advanced in perfect lines. They didn't run. They didn't need to. Their weapons fired again and again. Buildings burned. Jake saw Old Man Peterson fall, saw Mary Chen grab her daughter and run. He pulled his sidearm from his holster. It felt small and useless. Jake fired 3 shots at the nearest creature. The bullets hit its chest and bounced off. The creature didn't even slow down. It turned its head toward him, those black eyes reflecting the firelight. Jake rolled to the side as blue energy burned through the water tank where he had been hiding. Steam exploded into the air. He kept moving, using buildings and vehicles for cover. His job was to buy time, get people to the shelters. That's all that mattered now. He could see the shelter entrance 2 blocks away. Colonists were streaming inside, but there were still too many in the open. Sophie Blake, his partner on the security team, was at the shelter entrance. She was pushing people inside, keeping them moving, staying calm even though everything was falling apart. Jake ran toward her, firing his weapon to draw the creature's attention away from the civilians. "Sophie, get them inside and seal the door." She looked at him. Her face was covered in dust and blood that wasn't hers. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." Go, but he knew he was lying. More of the creatures were coming from the other ships. They were spreading out, surrounding the settlement. Jake could see at least 50 of them now. Maybe more. The colony's small security force couldn't stop them. They had 6 guards total. 4 were already dead. A young girl ran past Jake, separated from her parents. She was maybe 6 years old, crying and lost. One of the creatures saw her. It raised its weapon. Jake didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed the girl and threw himself behind a transport vehicle. The energy blast hit the vehicle's engine. It exploded, flipping over on its side. Jake felt something sharp cut his arm. He ignored it and kept the girl covered with his body. "It's okay. I've got you." "What's your name?" "Lily." The girl was shaking. "Lily, we're going to run to that building over there. See it? When I say go, you run as fast as you can. Don't look back." "Okay," she nodded. Jake looked around the burning vehicle. 3 creatures were walking toward them. He had 4 bullets left. He waited until they were close, then stood up and fired. 1 bullet hit a creature's eye. It screamed, a horrible clicking sound. The other 2 turned their weapons toward him. "Go!" Lily ran. Jake fired his last 3 bullets and ran after her. Energy blasts burned the ground around his feet. He could feel the heat on his legs. Lily reached the building and someone pulled her inside. Jake was 10 feet away when something hit him in the back. It wasn't a weapon blast. Something heavy slammed into him and knocked him down. He hit the ground hard enough to make his vision blur. Strong hands, too many hands, grabbed him and lifted him up. One of the creatures held him with 2 arms, while the other 2 pulled his weapon away and tied his hands behind his back. Jake struggled. He kicked and twisted. The creature holding him didn't seem to notice. Its grip was like steel. It carried him toward the largest ship like he weighed nothing. Jake looked back and saw Sophie at the shelter entrance. She was watching, her hand over her mouth. Then another guard pulled her inside and the shelter door began to close. Good. They were safe. That's what mattered. The creature carried Jake up a ramp into the ship. Inside everything was dark and smelled wrong. Like metal and something organic he couldn't identify. Other creatures moved through the corridors, their shells clicking. They looked at Jake but didn't stop. They brought him to a large room. The walls curved up to a high ceiling. Lights in the floor gave everything a blue glow. The creature dropped Jake on the ground. He landed on his knees. His hands were still tied. He looked up. At the far end of the room, one of the creatures sat on something like a throne. But this one was different. She was taller than the others. Her shell had markings on it, gold lines that formed patterns. She wore some kind of cloth over one shoulder, deep red like blood. The other creatures in the room stood at attention around her. She was clearly in charge. She stood up and walked toward Jake. Her movements were smooth, controlled. She stopped a few feet away and looked down at him. Then she spoke. The sounds coming from her mouth were clicks and whistles, nothing Jake could understand. But then a small device on her belt made different sounds. Human sounds, words, "You are human." The translation was flat, mechanical. Jake didn't answer. He just stared at her. "I am Queen Jathara of the Velkrith Empire. Your colony now belongs to us. Your people will serve or die." Jake found his voice. "Go to hell." One of the guards hit him. The blow came from the side, fast and hard. Jake's head snapped to the left. He tasted blood, but he didn't make a sound. He had been hit worse during his military training. Jathara raised one hand and the guard stepped back. She moved closer to Jake, studying him like he was an interesting insect. "Humans, we have encountered your kind before. Always you are weak. Always you die quickly. Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are fragile. You have no armor, no natural weapons. You are prey, not predators." Jake spit blood on the floor. "If we're so weak, why do you need 50 soldiers to take one small colony?" Jathara's head tilted. The translator didn't catch if she was angry or amused. "You killed 3 of my warriors before capture." "That is surprising. Most humans run or beg, but it changes nothing." Another Velkrith stepped forward. This one had scars across its shell and moved like an old soldier. It spoke in those clicking sounds and Jathara listened. The translator didn't work for their private conversation, but Jake could tell from their body language. The scarred one wanted him dead. Jathara was considering it. Finally, Jathara spoke to Jake again. "Commander Krikstal believes you should be executed immediately. He says you are dangerous, that all humans should be eliminated before they become a threat. But I am curious about you. You fought when others ran. You saved the young one at risk to yourself. This is not the behavior of prey." She walked around him in a slow circle. Jake tracked her movement as best he could. "The Velkrith have a tradition. When we conquer a world, we allow their best warriors a chance to die with honor. They face one of our champions in the arena. Always they die. But we respect their courage. You will be given this honor." "I don't want your honor," Jake said. "Let my people go and fight me with honor." "A fair fight?" Jathara made a sound that the translator turned into a laugh. "Fair? There is no fair in nature. The strong survive. The weak are consumed. This is the way of all life. Tomorrow you will face one of my warriors. You will have no weapons. He will have his honor blades. If somehow you survive, I will spare your life and you will serve me. If you die, you die. Those are your choices. And if I refuse, then I return to your colony and kill everyone in the shelters. All of them. The old, the young, all. Choose now." Jake closed his eyes. He saw Sophie's face. Lily's face. 800 people hiding underground, hoping they would live. He opened his eyes and looked at the Queen. "I'll fight." Jake didn't sleep much. The bench was hard and the ship made strange sounds all night. Metal groaning. Footsteps in the corridors. sometimes voices speaking that clicking language. He lay there in the dim blue light and thought about his training, about every fight he had ever been in, about every technique he had ever taught. When he was 20 years old, fresh out of basic training, his combat instructor had been a man named Harris. Harris was small, maybe 5'6", but Jake had seen him throw men twice his size like they were children. Harris taught that fighting wasn't about being bigger or stronger. It was about understanding leverage, balance, and timing. Jake hoped he remembered those lessons well enough. The wall of his cell turned transparent. Morning, he guessed. Though there were no windows to show the real sun, 4 guards stood outside. They opened the cell and gestured for him to come out. Jake stood slowly. His back was stiff from sleeping on the bench. His arm where he had been cut was sore but had stopped bleeding. The guards walked him through the ship. Other Velkrith stopped to watch him pass. Some made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Others just stared with those dark insect eyes. Jake kept his face blank. Don't show fear. Don't show weakness. That's what Harris always said. They came to a large door that opened into a massive chamber. Jake stopped at the entrance and stared. The room was enormous, at least 100 feet across and 50 feet high. The floor was metal, dark and stained. Around the edges, rising up like a stadium, were rows and rows of seats, and they were full. Hundreds of Velkrith warriors, maybe 1,000, all watching the entrance where Jake stood. This was the arena. The guards pushed Jake forward. He walked onto the metal floor. The surface was rough under his boots, scarred with marks that looked like claw marks and burns. How many beings had died here? How much blood had been spilled on this floor? The crowd's clicking voices filled the air, a sound like 1,000 insects. Jake looked up at the highest seats. There was a platform there, larger than the others. On it sat a throne made of black metal, and on the throne sat Queen Jathara, her gold markings catching the light. Around her stood her commanders and guards. She was watching Jake with those unreadable eyes. A voice boomed through the arena. The translator device made it understandable. The human challenger has entered. He stands accused of resistance against the Velkrith Empire. He will face trial by combat. If he survives, he earns his life. If he falls, he is forgotten, the crowd roared. The sound was deafening. Jake turned slowly, looking at all the faces watching him. He was going to die here. They all knew it. This wasn't a fight. It was an execution with extra steps, but he would make them work for it. A door opened on the opposite side of the arena. The crowd's noise grew even louder. Something was coming through that door, something big. Jake's hands curled into fists. This was it. The Velkrith warrior who entered was massive. He was at least 7.5 feet tall, broader than the guards Jake had seen. His purple shell had white scars across it, marks from old battles. 2 of his 4 arms carried curved blades that gleamed in the arena lights. The other 2 arms were empty but ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut steel. The warrior walked to the center of the arena. He raised his blades and let out a sound that was half roar, half clicking shriek. The crowd responded with the same sound. Jake felt it in his chest, a vibration that made his heart race. Fear was natural. Harris had taught him that. The trick was not to let fear control you. Jake walked forward. The warrior watched him approach. When they were 20 feet apart, Jake stopped. The warrior was even bigger up close. The top of Jake's head barely reached the creature's chest. Those blades were 3 feet long at least, curved and sharp on both edges. The voice boomed again. The champion Thrakar has claimed 17 kills in this arena. Behold his strength. Behold the price of resistance. Thrakar said something in his language. The translator didn't activate. It didn't matter. Jake understood the meaning. You're going to die here. Jake raised his hands in a fighting stance, his feet spread shoulder-width apart, weight balanced, knees slightly bent, ready to move in any direction. He kept his eyes on Thrakar's center mass, not his weapons. Harris taught that you could see an attack coming by watching the body, not the weapon. A horn sounded. The fight had begun. Thrakar charged forward immediately. His blades came down in a crossing strike meant to cut Jake in half. But Jake was already moving. He threw himself to the right, rolling across the metal floor. The blades hit where he had been standing with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew from the impact. Jake came up on his feet. Thrakar turned and struck again, faster than something that big should move. Jake ducked under the blade. He felt the wind of its passing above his head. Too close. He backed up, creating distance. The crowd's clicking changed. Were they confused? Jake was still alive. That wasn't supposed to happen. Throcker advanced again, more cautious now. He swung one blade in a horizontal arc. Jake jumped back. The blade missed by inches. Then Throckar's other blade came from the opposite direction. Jake had to drop flat to avoid it. He rolled again and came up running. Throcker followed, but Jake noticed something. The warrior was strong and fast, but his attacks followed patterns. High strike, low strike, cross strike. He was using trained moves, formal techniques. That meant he could be predicted. Throcker lunged forward with both blades aimed at Jake's chest. Jake sidestepped. As the blades passed, he moved in close, inside Throckar's reach where the long weapons couldn't hit him. He drove his fist into the joint where Throckar's arm met his body. The shell there was thinner, more flexible. Jake felt his knuckles connect with something softer underneath. Throcker made a sound of pain and surprise. He swung his empty clawed hand at Jake. Jake ducked and moved away, creating distance again. The crowd had gone quieter. That punch had hurt Throcker. They could all see it. Throcker's black eyes focused on Jake with new intensity. The warrior wasn't playing anymore. He attacked with fury, blades moving in combinations that Jake could barely track. All Jake could do was dodge and retreat. His lungs burned. Sweat ran into his eyes. One blade caught his shoulder, cutting through his shirt and drawing blood. The pain was sharp and immediate. Jake gritted his teeth and kept moving. He couldn't just defend forever. He needed to attack, but how? Throcker was bigger, stronger, armed and armored. What did Jake have? Speed, maybe. Technique. And desperation. Throcker charged again, leading with both blades. Jake waited until the last second, then dropped to his knees and slid forward across the smooth metal. He went right between Throckar's legs. As he passed underneath, Jake drove both fists up into the back of Throckar's knee joint. The warrior's leg buckled. Throcker stumbled forward off balance. Jake scrambled to his feet behind the warrior. Before Throcker could turn, Jake jumped onto his back. He wrapped one arm around Throcker's thick neck and held on. Throcker roared. He reached back with his empty arms, trying to grab Jake. His claws raked across Jake's leg, tearing fabric and skin. Jake ignored the pain. He squeezed Throckar's neck with all his strength, trying to cut off blood flow to the brain. But the warrior's neck was too thick, protected by overlapping plates of shell. Throcker spun in a circle, trying to throw Jake off. Then he ran backward toward the arena wall. Jake saw it coming but couldn't do anything. Throcker slammed Jake into the wall with crushing force. Jake's grip loosened. His vision went dark for a second. Throcker slammed him into the wall again. This time Jake fell, hitting the floor hard. He tried to get up. His body didn't want to respond. Everything hurt. Through blurred vision, he saw Throcker turn toward him. The warrior raised both blades high. The crowd was screaming. This was the end they had been waiting for. Jake's hand touched something on the floor, a piece of metal that had broken off from the wall. It was about a foot long, jagged at one end. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. As Throcker brought his blades down, Jake rolled to the side. The blades hit the floor where his head had been. Jake came up swinging the metal piece. The jagged end caught Throcker across the eyes. The warrior screamed and stepped back, one clawed hand going to his face. Dark fluid leaked between his fingers. Jake didn't hesitate. He charged forward while Throcker was blind and hurt. Jake swung the metal piece again, this time at Throckar's weapon hand. He hit the wrist joint where the plates separated. Throckar's grip loosened. One of the blades fell from his hand and clattered on the floor. Jake dove for it. His hands closed around the blade's handle. It was heavier than he expected, but balanced well. Jake rose to his feet, now armed. Throcker was still partially blinded, still in pain. He swung his remaining blade wildly. Jake ducked under it and moved behind the warrior. Harris's voice echoed in Jake's memory. When you have the advantage, end it quickly. Don't give your opponent a chance to recover. Jake saw his target, the back of Throcker's neck where the shell plates separated slightly. He raised the blade with both hands and brought it down with all his remaining strength. The blade sank deep between the plates. Throcker's body went rigid. The warrior made a gurgling sound. His remaining blade fell from his hand. Jake pulled his blade free and stepped back. Throcker stood for a moment. They took Jake back to his cell, but this time 2 guards stayed outside his door. Jake collapsed on the bench as soon as they left. His whole body was one big bruise. Blood had dried on his skin and clothes. He needed medical attention. Whether he would get it was another question. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Jake couldn't tell time in this place. Then the cell wall opened. A Velkrith entered, smaller than the warriors, carrying a case of medical supplies. The translator activated. I am here to treat your injuries. The Queen's orders. Jake sat up slowly. The Queen wants me alive then? The medic didn't answer. It opened the case and pulled out instruments that looked nothing like human medical tools. Jake tensed but had no choice. The medic worked quickly, cleaning wounds and applying some kind of gel that made the pain fade to a dull ache. It wrapped his shoulder and leg in bandages that felt warm and seemed to help the healing. Your species heals faster than expected, the medic said, examining Jake's cuts. Interesting biology. Inefficient in many ways, but adaptable. Glad you find us interesting, Jake muttered. The medic paused. What you did in the arena. How Thrakar was a champion. He had killed 17 opponents. You had no weapons, no armor. You should be dead. Jake looked at the Velkrith. Was it genuinely curious? I had training, experience, and I really didn't want to die. All creatures wish to live. That is not enough. You demonstrated skill that should not be possible for your species. The medic finished its work and packed the supplies. You have created a problem for us. The warriors are confused. Afraid, some of them. Our commanders are arguing. Change is coming because of you. Before Jake could respond, the medic left. The wall sealed again. Jake lay back down, thinking about what he had heard. Afraid. Some of the Velkrith were afraid of him. That was hard to believe, but also useful to know. Several more hours passed. Jake dozed, his body demanding rest. He woke when the wall opened again. This time it was Queen Jathara herself. She entered alone, no guards. The cell felt much smaller with her in it. Jake sat up quickly, ignoring the pain in his body. Jathara stood near the entrance, studying him. You are healed? She asked. Good enough. I have watched the recording of your fight 17 times. Each time I see something new. You studied Thrakar's movements. You adapted your strategy. You used the environment. You did not fight with honor. You fought to win. Jake met her gaze. Where I come from, honor doesn't matter much if you're dead. Jathara's head tilted. A gesture Jake was starting to recognize as interest. An honest answer. Tell me about human combat training. How do you prepare warriors? Why do you want to know? Because I am not a fool. If one human can defeat our champion, then humans are not what we believed. I need to understand your capabilities. All of them. Jake considered his options. He could refuse to answer, but that wouldn't help anyone. If Jathara was genuinely trying to understand humanity, maybe he could use that. We train constantly. Years of practice. We study different fighting styles, learn to use any weapon or no weapon. We learn to fight opponents bigger and stronger than us because size isn't everything. Technique, speed, intelligence, those can beat raw strength. Jathara listened intently. The Velkrith train as well. From childhood we learn combat. Yet our methods did not prepare Thrakar for you. Why? Because you've never had to fight something weaker than you. Your warriors expect opponents to be afraid. They expect to win through intimidation and strength. When that doesn't work, they don't know what to do. Silence filled the cell. Jake wondered if he had said too much. But Jathara didn't seem angry. She seemed thoughtful. You speak truth. We are a warrior race. We conquer through strength. But perhaps we have become too confident. She paused. Commander Crixtal believes you should be executed. He says your victory was luck, that no human could repeat it. Others agree with him. What do you believe? Jake asked. I believe I need more information. Therefore, I am offering you a choice. Face 3 more opponents over the next week. 3 champions, each stronger than the last. If you survive all 3, I will spare your colony. All of them. I will withdraw my forces from New Haven and leave your people in peace. Jake's heart raced. And if I die? Then Crixtal was right, and humans are simply lucky prey. Your colony will be conquered as planned. Why would you offer this? What do you gain? Jathara moved closer. Knowledge. If you win, it proves humans are dangerous and we must change our approach to your species. If you die, it proves nothing has changed. Either way, I learn what I need to know. Jake thought fast. 3 more fights. 3 more chances to die, but also 3 more chances to save everyone on New Haven. Sophie, Lily, all of them. If he refused, they would die anyway. At least this way they had hope. If I do this and survive, you promise to leave the colony alone? You have my word as Queen of the Velkrith Empire. Then I have a condition of my own. If I survive all 3 fights, you let me stay with your fleet. I'll teach your warriors what I know about human combat. I'll be your advisor on dealing with my people." Jathara's eyes seemed to gleam. "You would serve us?" "I would save my people and try to prevent other colonies from being slaughtered. If I can teach you that humans aren't weak prey, maybe you'll think twice before attacking more of us. Maybe I can save lives on both sides." "Clever. You seek to change us from within." Jathara didn't sound offended. She sounded impressed. "Very well. I accept your condition. Survive the 3 trials and you will serve as my human combat advisor. You will have quarters on this ship and access to our training facilities. In return, you will teach us everything you know about human warfare." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Jathara turned to leave. At the entrance, she paused. "I have led my people for only 3 cycles. I became queen by defeating my siblings in ritual combat. Every day, commanders like Crystal test my authority. They believe I am young and weak. But I am neither. I will make the Velkrith stronger, smarter. If you can help me do that, you will have value beyond any other captive we have taken. Do not disappoint me, Jake Morrison." The wall sealed behind her. Jake lay back on the bench, his mind racing. He had just made a deal with an alien queen. 3 more fights. 3 more chances to die, but also a chance to save New Haven and maybe, just maybe, change how the Velkrith saw humanity. 2 days passed. The medic returned twice to check his wounds. They were healing faster than Jake expected. Whatever that gel was, it worked. Food came regularly now. Actual food that looked and tasted better than the brown paste. Someone, probably Jathara, had ordered him kept in good condition. On the 3rd day, the guards came for him. It was time for the 2nd fight. They led him to the arena again. The seats were full, even more crowded than before. Word had spread. Everyone wanted to see if the human could do it again. Jake walked onto the metal floor. His body was still sore, but the pain was manageable. He looked up at Jathara's throne. She was there watching. Around her stood more commanders this time, all focused on him. Crystal was easy to spot, his scarred form rigid with what looked like anger. The voice boomed across the arena. "The human has accepted trial by champion. His 2nd opponent enters now. Behold Draxnor the Savage, destroyer of the colonies of Keth and Morn. 23 kills in this arena. No mercy, no surrender." The door opened. What came through was bigger than Thrakar. Draxnor's shell was dark red instead of purple, covered in old battle scars that formed white patterns. But what struck Jake most was the way this one moved. No ceremony, no formal entrance. Draxnor charged the moment he saw Jake, running full speed with all 4 arms spread wide. Jake ran. There was no point trying to fight that charge head-on. He sprinted to the side of the arena. Draxnor followed faster than Jake expected. The creature's claws scraped the floor as he ran. The sound was like knives on stone. Jake reached the arena wall and jumped. His hands caught the lower edge of the seating area. He pulled himself up just as Draxnor crashed into the wall below. The impact shook the entire structure. The crowd scattered back from that section, clicking in surprise. Draxnor looked up at Jake and roared. He jumped, reaching with all 4 arms. His claws caught Jake's leg and pulled. Jake kicked with his free leg, hitting Draxnor in the face. The creature didn't let go. Jake felt himself being dragged down. He let go of the ledge deliberately, dropping onto Draxnor. They fell together, hitting the arena floor in a tangle. Jake rolled away and came up running again. Draxnor was up just as fast. This one didn't tire easily. The fight became a brutal game of cat and mouse. Draxnor chased. Jake evaded, looking for openings. Unlike Thrakar, this opponent didn't use patterns. Draxnor attacked with pure aggression. No strategy beyond overwhelming his prey. That was both dangerous and exploitable. Jake let Draxnor chase him in circles. The crowd was clicking, probably confused why the human kept running. But Jake was waiting. Draxnor's attacks were getting wilder, more frustrated. Angry opponents made mistakes. Finally, Draxnor lunged with all 4 arms. Jake dropped flat. Draxnor sailed over him and crashed into the arena floor face first. Before the creature could recover, Jake was on his back. He wrapped both arms around Draxnor's thick neck and locked his legs around the creature's torso. Jake spent 3 days recovering. His ankle was the worst injury, badly sprained but not broken. The medic gave him exercises to do in his cell, movements to keep the joint flexible while it healed. The cuts on his arms from Draxnor's claws were deep but clean. They would scar, but that didn't matter. Scars were proof you survived. On the 2nd day of recovery, something unexpected happened. A young Velkrith warrior came to his cell. This one was smaller than most, maybe only 6 feet tall. The translator activated. I am Vexra, sub-commander in the Queen's fleet. I wish to ask you questions. Jake sat up on his bench. I'm not sure I'm supposed to have visitors. The Queen allows it. I have studied the recordings of your fights. Multiple times. I see techniques I do not understand. How do you defeat opponents larger and stronger than yourself? Jake studied the young warrior. Vexra seemed genuinely curious, not hostile. You want to learn? Yes, all my life I have been taught that strength wins battles. But you prove this is not always true. There must be something more. Jake smiled slightly. There is. It's called leverage and technique. Using an opponent's strength against them. Attacking weak points instead of trying to overpower them. But it takes years of training to master. Will you teach me? I don't think your commanders would approve of that. Many commanders are angry about your victories. But others, the younger ones, we see opportunity. We believe the Velkrith must adapt or we will eventually face an enemy we cannot defeat through strength alone. They talked for over an hour. Jake explained basic concepts of human martial arts while Vexra listened carefully. When the young warrior finally left, Jake felt something shift. Not all the Velkrith were his enemies. Some were potential allies or at least beings he could work with. That evening, Jathara visited again. She looked tired, her movements less smooth than before. The fleet is divided, she said without greeting. Half my commanders believe you are proof that humans are dangerous. They want to prepare for war with your species. The other half, led by Krixtal, believe you are an anomaly. They say any Velkrith could defeat any other human in combat. They want to prove this by conquering more human colonies. And what do you believe? Jake asked. I believe I need answers. Your final opponent has been chosen. General Krixer, my personal combat instructor, and the supreme champion of the Velkrith military. He has never been defeated, not once in 30 years of service. Jake felt his stomach tighten. When? Tomorrow. Krixer requested it. He says he will end this foolishness and restore order to the fleet. If you defeat him, you will have earned your place as my advisor. If you die, so be it. The question will be answered. No pressure then, Jake said quietly. Jathara moved closer to the bench. I am not supposed to favor you. As queen, I must remain neutral. But I will tell you this. Krixar trained me. He taught me everything about combat. He is faster than Thrakar, smarter than Draxnor. He will have studied your fights. He will know your techniques. You will have no advantage of surprise. Why are you telling me this? Because whether you live or die, you have already changed my fleet. My warriors question their training. They study your movements. They debate whether strength is enough. This is good. A military that does not question, does not adapt, will eventually fail. I would prefer you survive to continue this change. But that is up to you. She turned to leave, then paused. Jake Morrison, you fight for your people. I respect this. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that you have earned my respect. After she left, Jake didn't sleep. He spent the night going through every technique he knew, visualizing scenarios, preparing his mind. His body was as ready as it would ever be. His ankle was still weak but functional. The cuts had healed enough. Everything depended on whether his skill was enough to overcome the ultimate Velkrith warrior. Morning came too quickly. The guards arrived and escorted him to the arena. The walk felt longer this time. Jake noticed more Velkrith in the corridors, all watching him pass. Some made clicking sounds that might have been encouragement. Others just stared with those black eyes. The arena was packed. Every seat filled. Warriors stood in the aisles. This wasn't just an execution anymore. It was an event. The entire fleet wanted to see if the human could do it again, or if their champion would restore the natural order. Jake walked onto the arena floor. The stains from previous fights seemed darker today. He looked up at Jathara's throne. She sat rigid, flanked by more commanders than before. Krixtal was there, standing close to the queen. His posture radiated anticipation. The voice boomed. The human faces his final trial. General Krixar, supreme champion of the Velkrith Empire, enters now. 217 victories, 0 defeats. Behold true strength. The door opened. General Krixar walked into the arena with measured steps. He was no bigger than the other warriors, but everything about him radiated danger. His shell was dark gray, covered in scars that formed patterns like metals. He carried no weapons. He didn't need them. His forearms hung relaxed at his sides, but Jake could see the coiled strength in every movement. Krixar walked to the center and stopped. He looked at Jake with an expression that might have been curiosity. Then his translator activated. Jake Morrison, I have studied your fights. You demonstrate skill beyond what we believe possible for humans. You use leverage, timing, and environment effectively. You target weak points with precision. You adapt quickly to your opponent's style. These are the marks of a trained warrior. Jake said nothing. He just watched the general carefully. However, Krixar continued, you have fought opponents who relied on strength and aggression. I rely on neither. I rely on perfection. I have trained for 30 years. I know every fighting technique of 17 conquered species. I know your techniques now as well. You cannot surprise me. You cannot outthink me. Today you will learn the difference between skill and mastery. The horn sounded. The fight began. Krixar didn't charge. He walked forward slowly, his movements controlled and precise. Jake circled, looking for an opening. There wasn't one. The general's stance was perfect, his guard impossible to penetrate. This was nothing like the other fighters. Jake feinted left, then tried to come in from the right. Krixar adjusted smoothly, cutting off the angle. Jake tried a low attack. Krixar's foot shot out, stopping the attempt before it developed. They moved around each other like dancers, neither able to land a solid hit. The crowd was silent watching this strange combat. No wild charges. No desperate dodges. Just two fighters testing each other, looking for any weakness. Finally, Krixar attacked. His strikes were nothing like the other warriors. Each movement flowed into the next. High, low, middle, feint, real attack combination. Jake blocked, dodged, retreated. He couldn't keep up. A fist caught his ribs. Pain exploded through his side. Another strike hit his shoulder, spinning him around. A third caught his back, dropping him to one knee. Jake rolled away before the next strike landed. His ribs screamed. Something might be broken. He came up on his feet, breathing hard. Krixar hadn't even broken a sweat. The general advanced again, patient and relentless. This time, Jake tried to use the environment. He ran toward the wall, jumped up, and kicked off to change direction. Krixar was already there, anticipating the move. An arm caught Jake in midair and slammed him into the floor. Stars exploded in Jake's vision. He felt hands grabbing him, lifting him up. Krixar held Jake off the ground with two arms, studying him. You fight well, for a human, but you are outmatched. Yield, and I will make your death quick. Jake's answer was to drive his elbow into Krixar's face. The general's head snapped back. His grip loosened. Jake dropped, swept Krixar's leg, and rolled away. The general recovered instantly, faster than should be possible. But Jake had gained a second to breathe, a second to think. He couldn't outfight Krixar. The general was right about that. Jake was good, but Krixar was a master. In pure technique, Jake would lose every time. So he needed to change the game. Stop fighting Krixar's fight. Create chaos, Jake charged. Not a careful approach, a wild charge. Krixar prepared to counter. But Jake dove at the last second, sliding across the floor between the general's legs. As he passed, he grabbed one of Krixar's ankles and pulled hard. The general stumbled but didn't fall. Jake scrambled up and ran to the far side of the arena. Krixar followed, still controlled, still calm. But Jake wasn't fighting anymore. He was surviving, dodging, running, creating angles. Every time Krixar got close, Jake used some trick to gain distance. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't honorable. But it kept him alive. 5 minutes passed. 10. The crowd was clicking with confusion. Why wasn't the general finishing this? But Jake could see it. Krixar was still fresh, still strong. Jake was exhausted, bleeding from a dozen small cuts. His ribs hurt with every breath. His ankle was swelling again. He couldn't keep this up much longer. Krixar seemed to realize this too. He stopped chasing and stood in the center of the arena. Enough running. Face me with honor, or I will hunt you down and make your death slow. Jake limped toward the general. His body was failing. But his mind was still working. Harris had taught him one final lesson, the most important one. When you're losing, when you're outmatched, when death is certain, you make a choice. You can give up and die easy, or you can refuse to. Jake woke up in a different room. Not a cell this time. An actual bedroom, small but comfortable by human standards. The bed he lay on was too large, designed for Velcrith proportions, but someone had added extra padding to support his smaller frame. Medical equipment hummed nearby. His body felt distant, wrapped in the fog of strong painkillers. The medic was there, working on something Jake couldn't see. When it noticed he was awake, it approached. "You have been unconscious for 2 days. 3 broken ribs, extensive bruising, minor fractures in your left hand and right ankle. Your recovery is progressing well, but you will need rest for at least 1 more week." Jake tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his chest. New Haven, the colony. Did she keep her word? "The Queen ordered our forces withdrawn 3 hours after your final trial. Your colony is free. You have my word that this is truth." Relief flooded through Jake. They were safe. Sophie, Lily, all of them. Whatever happened to him now, at least he had accomplished that. He lay back down and closed his eyes. "This is no longer a holding cell," the medic continued. "These are your permanent quarters. You are now advisor to Queen Jathara. Your status has changed. You have freedom to move through authorized sections of the ship. Guards will accompany you for your protection, not imprisonment." Protection from what? From those who disagree with the Queen's decision. Commander Krixtal has many supporters. Not all of them accept your presence here. Over the next week, Jake learned the truth of those words. The Velkrith fleet was divided. Young warriors came to his quarters, asking questions about human combat techniques. They were curious, eager to learn, but older commanders avoided him, clicking disapproval whenever he passed in the corridors. Some made gestures that didn't need translation. They wanted him dead. Jathara visited regularly. Sometimes she came to check on his recovery. Other times they talked about strategy and warfare. Jake learned that she was younger than he thought, only 25 in human years. She had become queen by defeating her 3 siblings in ritual combat when their father died. 2 of her brothers had tried to kill her. She had killed them first. The 3rd had yielded and now served as a lesser commander in the outer fleet. "Leadership among the Velkrith is earned through strength," she explained one evening. "Every decision I make is questioned. Every order is tested. I must prove myself constantly, or I will be challenged and killed." "That sounds exhausting," Jake said. "It is our way. It ensures only the strongest lead, but sometimes I wonder if strength alone is enough. Your people value other qualities, intelligence, cooperation, innovation. These things have value too." Jake studied her carefully. "You're changing. Your time as queen is making you question traditions." "Perhaps. Or perhaps I always questioned, but now I have power to act on those questions." She paused. "You have changed me as well, Jake Morrison. You and your stubborn refusal to die. You have shown me that there are many forms of strength." After she left, Jake thought about her words. He was changing the Velkrith. Maybe not the whole empire, but at least this fleet, these warriors. It was a small change, but it was something. When he was finally cleared for movement, Jake began his new duties. Jathara assigned him to work with Vexra and a group of young warriors who wanted to learn human fighting techniques. They met in a training hall deep in the ship. The space was huge, with equipment designed for Velkrith combat practice. 12 warriors attended the first session. They stood in formation, watching Jake with those black insect eyes. He felt very small and very alone. But he had survived 3 arena fights. He could handle a classroom. "I'm not here to make you weaker," Jake began. The translator carried his words. "I'm here to make you smarter. You're already strong. You're already dangerous. But strength alone won't win every fight. Sometimes you'll face opponents who are faster, or better armed, or fighting on their home ground. When that happens, you need more than strength. You need technique." He demonstrated basic concepts: balance and how to break it, leverage and how to use it, weak points in armor and anatomy. The warriors watched intently. When he asked for volunteers to practice with him, 3 stepped forward immediately. Jake worked with each one, showing them how to use their opponent's strength against them. It was strange teaching 7-foot-tall warriors with 4 arms and natural armor, but the principles were the same. Physics didn't care what species you were. A joint still broke the same way. Balance still mattered. Timing was universal. After the session, Vexra approached him. "This is valuable knowledge. I understand now how you defeated our champions. You see combat differently than we do. We see power and dominance. You see problems to solve." "That's exactly right," Jake replied. "Every fight is a problem. The better you understand the problem, the easier it is to find a solution." Word of the training session spread. By the third session, Jake had 25 students. By the fifth, 40. General Krixar himself came to observe one day. He watched without comment, then left. But the next day he sent 3 of his personal warriors to attend. That was approval, Jake realized. The Supreme Champion supported what Jake was teaching. Not everyone approved. One evening, Jake was walking back to his quarters with his 2 guard escorts when 3 warriors blocked the corridor. These weren't students. Their posture was aggressive. The translator activated. "Human, you corrupt our traditions. You make our warriors weak with your coward techniques." Jake's guards moved closer to him, but he raised a hand. "I don't want trouble. Step aside. We do not take orders from prey." The lead warrior moved forward. "You hide behind the Queen's protection, but accidents happen. Perhaps you fall. Perhaps you stop breathing. Who can say?" Before Jake could respond, another voice echoed down the corridor. "Perhaps I can say." Jathara appeared from a side passage, flanked by her royal guard. The 3 warriors immediately dropped to submissive postures. "My queen, we meant no disrespect." "You threaten my advisor. That is disrespect to me." Her voice was ice. "Who sent you?" The warriors said nothing. Jathara stepped closer. "I will ask once more. Who sent you?" Still silence. Jathara made a sharp gesture. Her guards seized the 3 warriors. "Take them to detention. They will remain there until someone claims responsibility for this action. If no one does, they will be executed for threatening a member of my council." After the warriors were dragged away, Jathara turned to Jake. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine." They were just talking. They were planning. If I had not arrived, they would have attacked. This is Krixtal's work. He cannot challenge me directly, so he tries to remove you instead. She paused. "I am sorry. I brought you into this conflict. I chose to be here. Besides, I'm used to people wanting me dead by now." Jake smiled slightly. "It's been that kind of month." Jathara made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You maintain humor even in danger. This is another human trait I am learning to appreciate. Come, I will escort you to your quarters personally." As they walked, Jake asked the question that had been bothering him. "What happens if Krixtal challenges you?" "Then I fight him. To the death. It is Velkrith law. Any commander can challenge the ruling monarch if they believe the monarch is unfit. They must gather support from other commanders first. Once enough support is secured, the challenge is made public and cannot be refused. How much support does Krixtal have?" "Enough to concern me, not enough to challenge yet. But he is patient. He gathers more each day." She looked at Jake. "Does this frighten you?" "Yeah. But I've been frightened since the day your ships attacked my colony. I'm getting used to it." They reached his quarters. Jathara paused at the entrance. "Jake Morrison, you should know that I value your counsel, not just on combat, but on leadership. You offer perspectives I cannot get from my commanders. If Krixtal does challenge me, I want you to know that your time here has mattered. You have changed my fleet, you have changed me." "I hope that's a good thing," Jake said quietly. "Time will tell. Rest well. Tomorrow we begin preparing defenses against Krixtal's inevitable move." That night, Jake lay in his too large bed and thought about his situation. He had survived the arena. He had saved his colony. But he had also become a piece in a much larger game, a power struggle for control of the Velkrith fleet. Jathara was trying to change her people, to make them adapt and evolve. Krixtal represented tradition and the old ways. Jake was caught in the middle. His communicator chirped. Jake reached for it, surprised. He had been given the device to stay in contact with Jathara and his guards, But no one called this late. The message was text only, translated into English. It was from Sophie Blake on New Haven. The colony had managed to send a message to the Velkrith ship, asking for it to be forwarded to Jake. His hand shook as he read it. Jake, we're alive. All of us. I don't know what you did or how you did it. But the aliens left, just packed up and flew away. The settlement is damaged, but we're rebuilding. Everyone keeps asking about you. They say you're still with the alien fleet. They say you fought for us. I don't know if this message will reach you. I don't know if you're even alive. But if you are, if you can hear this, thank you, you saved us. Come home when you can, we'll be waiting. Sophie? Jake read the message 3 times. Then he sent a reply, knowing it. The arena was more crowded than Jake had ever seen it. Every seat filled. Warriors standing in every available space. This wasn't just about 2 leaders fighting. This was about the future direction of the entire Velkrith Empire. Would they continue with tradition? Or would they embrace change? Jake sat in the front row, flanked by his guards. Vexra stood nearby, along with the warriors who had been attending Jake's training sessions. On the opposite side of the arena, Krixtal's supporters gathered. The division in the fleet had never been more visible. The voice boomed through the chamber. Queen Jathara has been challenged for leadership of the fleet. Commander Krixtal claims she is unfit to rule, that she weakens our warriors, that she shows favor to prey species. This challenge is legal and binding. The combat will be to the death. There can be no mercy, no surrender, only victory or death. 2 doors opened simultaneously. From one side entered Jathara. She wore minimal armor, just protection over her vital organs. Her forearms hung ready at her sides. Her gold markings seemed to glow in the arena lights. She walked with confidence, head high, every movement controlled. From the other side came Krixtal. He was larger than the queen, his scarred shell a testament to decades of combat. He wore no armor at all, displaying absolute confidence in his abilities. His movements were those of a veteran warrior, steady and sure. They met in the center of the arena. The tradition required them to speak before combat began. Krixtal's translator activated first. You have dishonored our traditions, young queen. You spare enemies. You learn from prey. You place a human above our own warriors. You are weak. And weakness in leadership leads to extinction. I challenge you not from ambition, but from duty. The Velkrith must be strong. Jathara's response was calm. You mistake adaptation for weakness, old commander. You cling to traditions because you fear change. But the universe changes whether we accept it or not. Species that refuse to adapt become extinct. I lead this fleet into the future. You would lead it into the past. That is why you will lose. Krixtal's mandibles clicked in what might have been anger. Words from a child. Let your combat speak instead. The horn sounded. The battle began. Krixtal attacked first, a powerful combination meant to overwhelm. But Jathara didn't meet strength with strength. She moved aside, deflecting rather than blocking. Jake recognized the technique immediately. It was something he had taught in his sessions. Use minimal force to redirect maximum force. Don't fight the attack, flow around it. The crowd clicked with surprise. This wasn't traditional Velkrith combat style. Krixtal pressed his attack, throwing powerful strikes from all 4 arms. Jathara evaded, blocked efficiently, and countered with quick strikes to weak points. She was faster than Krixtal, using her youth and speed against his power. But Krixtal was no fool. He adjusted his strategy, cutting off angles, forcing Jathara to fight in smaller spaces where speed mattered less. His experience showed in every movement. He had fought hundreds of battles. He knew how to control an opponent. A heavy blow caught Jathara's side. She staggered but recovered quickly. Krixtal pressed his advantage, raining down strikes. Jathara defended desperately. Another hit connected, this time to her shoulder. She dropped to one knee. Krixtal's supporters roared with approval. The commander raised his arms for a finishing strike. Jake gripped the edge of his seat, unable to look away. If Jathara fell, he would die within the hour. But more than that, he realized he didn't want her to lose. She was trying to make her people better. She deserved to succeed. Krixtal's arms came down, but Jathara rolled forward between his legs, exactly like Jake had done against Draxnor. As she passed underneath, she struck both of Krixtal's knee joints. The commander's legs buckled. He fell forward, off balance. Jathara was on her feet instantly. She jumped onto Krixtal's back before he could recover. her arms wrapped around his neck in a hold Jake had demonstrated countless times. But this wasn't a chokehold meant to make an opponent submit. This was meant to kill. Crixtal struggled, reaching back with all four arms. He caught Jathara's armor and pulled. They both fell, rolling across the arena floor in a tangle of limbs. The crowd was on their feet, clicking and chirping with excitement. This was the kind of desperate combat they understood. They separated and came up facing each other. Both were injured now. Crixtal favored his right side. Jathara's shoulder hung lower than it should. They circled, both breathing hard. "You fight like the human," Crixtal said. "Tricks and deception. This is not our way. Our way was not working. The humans showed us that. You can accept it or die ignorant. Your choice." They clashed again. This time both fighters used everything they had. No holding back. No testing. Just pure combat. Strikes and counters. Blocks and breaks. The sound of shell hitting shell echoed through the arena like drums. Crixtal managed to grab Jathara with two arms and lift her off the ground. He threw her across the arena. She hit the wall hard and fell to the floor. Crixtal charged. This was it, the finishing move, but Jathara wasn't finished. As Crixtal reached for her, she grabbed a piece of debris from the floor and swung it. The impact caught Crixtal across the face, stunning him. Jathara surged up, driving her shoulder into his chest. They both went down again. Jake was standing now, not even realizing he had risen from his seat. Everyone in the arena was standing. The fight had gone on for 15 minutes. Both warriors were exhausted, injured, running on pure will, but neither would stop. Neither could stop. Only death would end this. Jathara got to her feet first, barely. She swayed, clearly dazed. Crixtal was slower to rise, his movements heavy. They stood 10 feet apart, both barely able to continue. Then Crixtal made his final charge. All or nothing. Victory or death. He came at Jathara with everything he had left. And she didn't dodge. She stepped forward to meet him, accepting the impact. They collided in the center of the arena. For a moment, both were locked together. Then Jathara twisted. It was the throw Jake had spent hours teaching his students. Use your opponent's momentum against them. Add to their force instead of resisting it. Guide them where you want them to go. Crixtal went flying. He landed hard on his back. Before he could move, Jathara was on him. She drove her arm down with precision, hitting the soft spot at the base of his neck, the same spot Jake had used on Draxnor, but this time with lethal force. Crixtal's body went rigid. Then still Jathara stood over her opponent's body. She raised all four arms high. The gesture meant victory. The arena exploded with sound, clicking, chirping, roaring. Half were cheering. The other half sat in shocked silence. Their champion was dead. The young queen had won. Jathara swayed on her feet. Medical personnel rushed onto the arena floor. But before they reached her, she turned and looked directly at Jake. Even from across the arena, he could see the exhaustion in her posture. But also triumph. She had won. They had both survived. The medics surrounded her. Jake lost sight of her in the crowd. His guards were pulling him back, getting him out of the arena before Crixtal's supporters could react. Fexra walked beside him. The queen has secured her throne. This changes everything. The old commanders will have to accept her authority now. She won by using human techniques. Everyone saw it. Your training methods are now proven effective. Jake nodded, still processing what he had seen. Jathara had been magnificent. She had taken everything he taught and made it her own, combined it with her natural fighting ability. Become something new. Not fully Velkrith. Not human. Something in between. Something better. 3 days later, Jake was summoned to the Queen's chamber. He found Jathara there, recovered from her injuries thanks to advanced medical technology. She sat on her throne, but when Jake entered, she stood. Jake Morrison, you have fulfilled your duties beyond what I expected. You saved your colony. You taught my warriors. You helped me win my throne. You have earned your freedom. If you wish to return to your people, I will arrange transport. Jake hadn't expected this. He had assumed he would be with the fleet permanently. You're letting me go? A debt is owed. You have given me much. I will not hold you prisoner if you wish to leave. But I hope you will choose to stay. There is much work still to do. Many warriors to train. Many minds to change. I could use your help. Jake thought about New Haven, about Sophie and the other colonists. He could go home, resume his old life, but that life felt far away now. He had changed. The universe had changed. He couldn't go back to checking fence lines and pretending the galaxy was safe. If I stay, what exactly would I be doing? Advisor to the Queen on human affairs and combat strategy. Teacher to our warriors. Ambassador between Velkrith and humanity. Help me prevent the mistakes that led to New Haven. Help me turn the Velkrith from mindless conquerors into something wiser. That's a lot to ask. Yes, but you have already begun this work. Dozens of warriors now train in your methods. They tell others. The ideas spread. Change is happening. But change is fragile. It needs protection. Guidance. I need someone I can trust who understands both species. Jake walked to the viewing window. Outside, stars moved past as the ship traveled through space. Somewhere out there was New Haven, Sophie, home, but also out there were hundreds of other human colonies.